There's a strange kind of irony in modern storytelling. We live in an age where everyone can be a hero, yet somehow the stories about them keep getting worse. Once upon a time, diversity was a byproduct of good writing. Characters who reflected the world, written by people who understood it. Now it often feels like the world itself is an afterthought, built only to advertise how inclusive the story is supposed to be. And look, let's make something clear. Diversity is not the villain here. Bad writing is. This essay isn't about politics. It's about the death of character craft, the corporate fear of discourse, and how storytelling traded empathy for applause. Because representation is beautiful, but only when it means something. In the golden age of storytelling, great characters were defined by who they were, not what they represented. Tony Stark wasn't a symbol of masculinity. He was an egotistical genius who learned humility the hard way. Black Panther wasn't a black superhero movie. It was a story about legacy, grief, and leadership that happened to be set in Africa. That's the difference between representation and reduction. One expands a world, the other shrinks it to a hashtag. Good writing makes you forget identity politics because you're too busy caring about the person. Bad writing makes you forget the person because you're too busy being reminded of their identity. Here's the problem. Modern studios have confused visibility with depth. They think putting a checklist of identities on screen equals progress. But the audience doesn't want diversity instead of story. They want diversity through story. You can feel the difference between genuine inclusion and marketing inclusion. Phase 1 of the MCU gave us flawed heroes. Phase 4 gave us infographics. She-Hulk, Eternals, the Marvels all showcase diversity, but few remember to write actual people. Meanwhile, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 quietly delivers the most diverse emotional experience in the franchise. Why? Because it's about pain, family, and acceptance, universal things that happen to exist in diverse bodies. Once, strength in storytelling meant complexity, the ability to fail, to doubt, to grow. Now, strength often means invincibility, the inability to falter, to be wrong, or even to smile in a way that feels human. Let's talk about the so-called strong female character. You've seen her, perfectly composed, always right, emotionally bulletproof, smarter and stronger than everyone else, but somehow boring. Because perfection isn't inspiring, it's alienating. Compare that to Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor, or even Katara from Avatar. They weren't strong because they won fights. They were strong because they struggled and broke, but rebuilt themselves. Modern media seems afraid to let women learn, to let them fail, to let them be wrong.
Oh, I think you're wrong. I'm not wrong.
Strength isn't the absence of weakness, it's the reconciliation of it. And ironically, that's what feminism in storytelling was supposed to be. Writing women as people, not as PR campaigns. Take Mulan for instance. In the original 1998 animated film, Mulan's journey is defined by her humanity, her fear, her cleverness, her defiance of expectations. She struggles, fails, learns, and rises. In the live-action remake, however, Mulan isn't a girl who becomes a warrior. She's a perfect warrior from the first frame. She doesn't outsmart her enemies, she outpowers them. And by doing so, the film unintentionally strips her of what made her inspiring in the first place. And this is where the concept of the Mary Sue enters the conversation. Originally coined in fanfiction, a Mary Sue refers to a character who is unrealistically perfect, lacking genuine flaws or growth. She's instantly skilled, universally loved, morally infallible, and narratively untouchable. In other words, She's a character written without friction. Consider Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. In The Force Awakens, she's an intriguing mystery, capable, resourceful, with room to evolve. But as the sequels progress, the story rushes to sanctify her. She becomes a flawless hero who wins every duel, masters every Force ability, and resolves every conflict with divine certainty, while the world around her becomes less defined. It's the writing's unwillingness to let Rey earn her powers. Or look at Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers never faces a true internal challenge. She doesn't question her morality. She doesn't fail in a meaningful way. Compare that to Tony Stark, who begins his story as a narcissistic arms dealer and ends it with the ultimate act of humility and sacrifice. That's an arc. Carol doesn't have one. She simply remembers she is strong, and the movie ends. When women are written like Ripley or Connor, we see characters who fight not just enemies, but themselves. There's a difference between a story with a message and a message wearing the costume of a story. One invites you to think, the other tells you what to think. And when filmmakers forget the difference, you end up with movies that sound like a Twitter thread written by a focus group, not a piece of art. But here's the thing. Social commentary in film isn't the problem. It never was. Some of the greatest stories ever told were built on political, moral or social foundations. They just remembered the golden rule. People connect to characters, not causes. Look at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Miles Morales isn't treated as a diversity checkbox. He's written as a kid with insecurities, flaws and a learning curve. His story resonates because it's universal. The fear of not being ready, the pain of not fitting in, and the joy of finding your own rhythm. The movie doesn't say anyone can wear the mask as a moral lecture. It shows it, emotionally, through Miles' journey. By the time he jumps off that building, every viewer, no matter the background, feels the leap of faith in their bones. Even older films knew how to weave messages into narrative without feeling like lectures. The Matrix from 1999 is a philosophical bombshell about identity, conformity and control. But it never forgets to be a thrilling sci-fi story first. The Iron Giant from 1999 is about pacifism and empathy, told through the eyes of a child who befriends a weapon. Neither of these films pauses to announce, here's what we believe. They let the audience discover it. And that's the art that seems to be fading today. Modern message movies often want applause for intent before they've earned it through execution. They want to be important rather than impactful. When a story truly works, you don't walk away saying, that was a great message. You walk away saying, that made me feel something. The message lingers not because it shouted, but because it echoed. So when people say, stories with messages don't work anymore, they are wrong. It's not the message that's broken, it's the delivery. And this is where it gets ugly. When fans point out weak writing, inconsistent tone, or shallow character arcs, studios don't engage, they deflect. Criticism is suddenly labeled as toxic. Disagreement is bigotry. It's not a discussion anymore, it's a shield. When the Marvels underperformed, the narrative wasn't, maybe people are tired of hollow scripts. It was, people hate women. When She-Hulk got backlash, it wasn't, maybe the humor didn't land. It was, you just don't like confident women. That's not dialogue, that's manipulation. This is how real critique dies. Not through censorship, but through guilt-tripping your audience into silence. The truth is, most fans want diverse stories, or they don't care if the cast is diverse. They just want the stories to be good. But calling every critique toxic is easier than listening. There's an old saying in screenwriting, show me the soul of your story, not the slow. And maybe that's what modern storytelling has started to forget. So, how do we fix it? If a character makes a bad choice, let them face it. If they grow, let it cost them something. Don't make them flawless, make them human. Stop trying to inject themes like they're vitamins the audience forgot to take. Themes should be found in the story, not forced into it. Respect the audience's intelligence. They are not bigots because they didn't like your film. Maybe they just didn't like your film. If you want viewers to care about your characters, give them a reason beyond the identity label. People fell in love with Ripley from Alien not because she was a female lead, but because she was a competent, believable human being in an impossible situation. In classic stories, good people did bad things for good reasons, and we wrestled with that. Now, everyone is either a saint or a monster, depending on the moral of the month. But stories thrive in gray zones. Stories used to unite us by showing what we share. They still can, but only if writers stop shouting representation and start whispering humanity. Because great stories don't need to announce that they are inclusive, they just need to feel true. And maybe the real test of a story isn't whether it reflects us perfectly, but whether, just for a moment, it makes us want to be better than our reflection.